Hi again then guys, and here it is, the long asked for and long awaited, well about a week anyway, rivals match between the Toyota TS050 LMP1 Hybrid and the Porsche 919 LMP1 Hybrid, the two newest and most significant prototype cars of the Gran Turismo franchise, of course on Gran Turismo Sport. I'm personally pretty interested to see what other kind of prototypes come to the game down the line. And of course these are not the only Le Mans prototypes on the game, official ones that is. You've got the Audi R18 and the Nissan Nismo GTR. The reason why we're not including those is because I've already covered those cars along with the Toyota TS30 Hybrid, which again features on this game as well, in their own three-way rivals match on Gran Turismo 6. So although we might revisit it down the line, this match is more just for the two new ones, so that we can really focus on those instead of factoring in cars that we already know and love. So with that being said, we'll do a quick breakdown of each individual car. And of course, if you want to check out more in-depth reviews for either of them, I have done that as well on the channel, and you can see those by clicking through at the end of this video. But we'll do a quick rundown, a quick overview, and then as we always do, we'll compare their raw numbers to see which one wins, on paper at least for the fun of it. Well, first up then we have the Porsche 919 Hybrid, and of course this is a car which has huge fandom associated with it. It's the fastest Porsche in the game, at least for now, and of course people are going to want to use it. And as I covered in the review for this car, it was my first foray into real prototypes on Gran Turismo Sport, and back then of course, even in the space of a week, I was far less experienced with the physics of the game, using driving aids, having them turned off, all that kind of stuff. Now I'm immediately quicker with the same car on the same track, and also that goes for the Toyota. But an interesting thing that I found, and I would be interested to know if this is applied to those of you guys who own both cars also, is that I found that the Toyota, which, as I mentioned in the review video for it, is, I would say, much more beginner friendly, made less of an improvement when upgraded than the Porsche did. And I don't mean that the Porsche is just more powerful. It is, as it happens, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm referring to is the fact that the upgrades and the tuning, and especially driving the cars over the course of a week, I felt that I improved more with the Porsche, even though it was a more challenging car initially, than I did with the Toyota. I spent a decent amount of time with both cars, but the Toyota remained pretty good, whereas the Porsche went from good to outstanding, at least for me, and that was a bigger jump. Now the Porsche is more powerful, as I said, it also has more torque, so pretty significant, and although both cars don't fully factor in the hybrid system as far as sheer numbers go, that pretty much speaks for itself. It has more power, and it has more torque. Now the Porsche certainly feels faster to me, but I would still say that even though I improved more in the Porsche, in their stock forms, which is not in this video, these are both fully upgraded, in their stock forms, the Toyota is a better handling car, I would say. But when tuned, the potential of the Porsche, I would say, is superior. But how then does the Toyota compare in its own way? Well, as I mentioned, I would still stand by that this Toyota is a better beginner's vehicle. The handling is more measured, it's more inclined towards understeer, whereas the Porsche is definitely more inclined to oversteer. Of course you can spin out with both cars, but the Toyota feels much more grounded, much more planted, and that's not just down to stuff like weight, because fully tuned they both weigh exactly the same. So it's an interesting difference that I really found with both cars, and as I said, I don't know if that's just me, maybe it's purely my driving style, but I definitely saw bigger jumps and leaps and improvements with the Porsche in terms of driving style and tuning than I did with this one. Not that the Toyota is a bad car, not by any means, it's actually outstandingly good, better even than some of the equivalent VGTs, but at the same time, the Toyota feels to me like it's sitting at a certain level, and I can't really get it to go beyond that. It's really good, but not absolutely fantastic, which is what I would say the TS30 was on GT6. This doesn't necessarily feel that level to me. It doesn't feel that dominating, whereas the Porsche does. So around the track, you could definitely see a difference from the lap times. The Porsche was quicker by quite a lot, and I'm sure that would be different for different people. But now let's find out how they compare for fully upgraded numbers. First up then we have the price, and of course both cars are going to get either an equal point, or you could give neither of them a point because they're exactly the same. As you guys know, I like to give them both a point if they are equal, just for the sake of it. Oprah style, you get a point and you get a point. They're both 1,000,000 credits. Now you're probably wondering now, why am I including the car category as a point system? Surely most of these matches are going to be pretty equal, so the cars are always going to get an equal point, whereas the PP levels on GT6 could genuinely be different. That's a fair point, and the main reason why I am doing so is because in some of these Gran Turismo Sport Rivals matches, the cars might not be in the same exact category when fully tuned or to begin with. Say for instance 2 supercars from different classes which are rivals, but which simply don't have the same amount of power. That kind of scenario. So, that's why I'm doing that. However, these two are both the same, so again, you could give them none, but I'm going to give them both a point. As far as engine capacity, well, interestingly, the Toyota does win. They're both quite small, 2 litres and 2.4, but of course, biggest isn't always best. As always with this series, though, we're going to give the Toyota a point, just for the sake of top trump style rules. As far as power, I already mentioned that the Porsche has a better upper limit, by a decent enough margin, especially when you factor in the hybrid system, which we're not really fully told in the game. And then as far as torque as well, the Porsche is even better in that regard. It has an even bigger margin of victory, well over 400 foot-pounds, compared to well under 300 for the Toyota. As far as weight, they are again exactly the same in peak form, 796 kilos, which is pretty nice, I think, to be able to do that to your prototypes on GT Sport, because that's something which we've pretty much never been able to do on Gran Turismo before. The weight has always been just the weight. You've never been able to drop it from a prototype, only add ballast. So I think that's pretty cool to be able to lower that. And then as far as horsepower per ton, well, it weighs the same and has more power. So of course the Porsche is going to win there. They are both well over 600, but the Porsche has a pretty easy victory. And as far as the lap times, well, as always, I do not award that a point because there are just way too many variables. The differences in driving style, tuning style, and of course the choice of track will always be a massive variable. But it is interesting to note that for me, the Porsche was a lot faster, and I tried a lot of laps with the Toyota to get it closer, but I just found that it was kind of hitting a ceiling for me. I'm sure other people could get it to go faster, I don't doubt that. Likewise with the Porsche, but at least for me, the Porsche was an easy win there. But it doesn't really matter because we're not giving it a point anyway. So overall, that means that the Porsche, pretty obviously when you see the numbers, does win by 6 points to the Toyota's 4. But if you actually factor in the points that aren't just equal, like price and class, well, if you do it that way, then the Porsche has 3 distinct points, which are power, torque, and horsepower per ton. 3 very good ones to have. Whereas the Toyota only has 1 distinct point to its name, which is kind of an irrelevant one, and that is engine capacity. So overall, the Porsche gets a pretty easy win, and for once, it was also the quicker of the two, which is quite rare in these rivals matches for the car to win on paper and in practice. But overall, they are both brilliant. Don't get me wrong, the Toyota has a huge amount to offer, and seeing as we can tune vehicles like the LM Nismo to specs which are insanely higher than they were on GT6, then don't worry, we will be featuring cars like that again down the line in review videos and Rivals matches potentially also. But that's it overall for this particular Rivals matchup. Of course, I'll see you guys next week with another one, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.